Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Renewed. So glad to have you with us here again today. It's been a little while. Sorry that there's been quite a gap here, but just some really exciting stuff going on at Turnback here. I think I shared with you in the last episode, we got our nonprofit status approved here in the state of Minnesota, but we were then starting the process of applying for our 501c3 tax exempt status from the IRS, which typically takes about 6 months to a year or so to get approved. But from the time that we submitted the paperwork to the time that we got approved and got the official approval letter was 31 days. So that truly was a miracle that the IRS did something quickly. And our accountant that was working with us said that he's just never seen it go that quickly before ever. So those of you who are praying for that process, your prayers got answered in a pretty big way. So thank you so much for those prayers. It's really encouraging for me to be able to see God's hand in a pretty big way in this ministry. But today I'm really excited about this episode. My good friend Rich Moore, who is the International Groups Advisor for Pure Desire Ministries. In my work at Pure Desire, he's the guy I roll up to. He's my boss. He's going to be joining us today and sharing his story, which is very similar to mine. And I'm so excited to have Rich here because he and I have gotten to be such good friends over the years because his story is very similar to mine. And when I called Pure Desire back a few years ago when I knew that God wanted me to work somehow with men and sexual addictions, but I figured my criminal past would hinder me a bit from doing that, I was able to hear Rich's story and see how much God is using him all over the world because of his story. It's really because of how I saw God using Rich Moore that I'm doing what I'm doing today at Turnback and with Pure Desire. So needless to say, I'm pretty pumped to have him here to share his story. And then we're probably going to stretch it into a second episode tomorrow to talk about how important it is to confess sin that's in our life. Rich and I both had pretty stiff legal consequences because of how we got busted and the confessions we had to do. And we want to be able to share that with you, that if there's stuff that's there, that's secrets that you haven't shared yet, you've got to get that out. Otherwise, healing can't take place. So I don't want to talk anymore. Let's join Rich Moore from Pure Desire Ministries and hear his story here today. There's no Chicago Bears garbage around there, is there?
Oh, wait, I got this.
Well, yeah, that's
I could put it like right here, you know.
That's not a Chicago Bears thing, so you're all right. So, Rich, thanks for jumping on with us today. I know that you are busy out there. I know that you're sick. I know that you're a Bears fan, so it makes it hard for you to go public with your face in any kind of social media setting.
Hey, go Bears. First place in the division.
Gosh, as a Packer fan, this interview today is difficult for me to do. But anyway, I'm really glad that you chose to take some time today, man. I know that with your position at Pure Desire and everything else you got going on, your time is short. So thanks for jumping on. I just want to jump right into it. And I've shared with the viewers here a little bit about the fact that my story and your story is similar. So I think it's a great opportunity for you and I to be able to share that with people and help them understand that, man, if you don't get this stuff taken care of, it leads you down a dark path, right? You know, if you don't get sin in your life, especially sexual sin, taken care of, you end up in places you don't want to be. So first off, I just wanted you to share with everybody, who you are and a little bit about your background and your upbringing and what got you to the point today that you're at.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Paul. And it's been Pure Desire has been just a great thing in my life. I grew up, went to church when I was little. Went to church with my mom. Was involved in, we had a thing called Carpenters Union, which was for little kids, and did that. And then once I got to about 13 years old, I was involved in sports. So sports really kind of consumed my life. It was every weekend during the week. My brother and I, football, basketball, baseball, whatever it was, we were just always on the go. So really a sports family. There was something going on all the time. And as I got older, sports became more important. And then I stopped going to church. Didn't mean I stopped believing. It was just I got into a cycle where that was more important than the other stuff. So.
So what started changing in your life? You grew up in a family like I did where, my mom and dad were solid believers. I went to church. I was involved in singing and ministry stuff even when I was younger, and things, I started to walk away from the Lord at a certain point in my life. What was that point for you where things started changing?
For me, it really started early. I was abused when I was 4 years old. So everything I learned about sex, everything I learned really about anything at that time, I learned when I was at 4 years old. So I grew up literally starting at 4, learning how to manipulate people and lie and cover and get away with things, because I had this thing over me that I could say, I can blurt out and say what happened, but I use it to an advantage instead of getting help.
Yeah.
I kept it in and used it as a way to manipulate things, and it just carried over. By the time I was 12, I was pretty much, I'd say I was pretty much full blown sex addict. Never really struggled with porn. It was always a real thing for me. It had to be a physical. So, I had some friends in school, and from time to time we'd mess around. And as I got older, I was about 16, somewhere in there. And some buddies and we found a place we'd go hang out in a topless bar, and that's just kind of where we lived. But before 16, when I was 14 years old, that's when I really crossed the line and took it to the next level. And I abused my niece, and went through that process, and the guilt and shame, everything we do when we screw up is, I just remember walking through that thinking, gosh, what did I do? And, but I didn't want to tell anybody, obviously. And it just ate me alive for years. So instead, and then without it coming out and hiding this secret sin in my life, I just dove into the sexual sin even more, topless bars and one night stands and hanging out with all sorts of unruly people, and was not living a really good lifestyle, and for the most part hid it pretty well. I had a lot of friends, and I was at that time, even after high school, a little bit during school, playing sports and just being active. So I looked really good on the outside, but nobody really knew what was going on the inside.
Yeah,
so,
that sounds really familiar.
Yeah.
My story was I touched my stepdaughter. So that's, your story and my story are very similar. And with me, there was a ton of shame because it happened a number of times over the course of a period of time. And yours, you had a lot of time that passed from the incident to the time that you got busted with it.
Yep.
So how do you think shame played into the factor that helped fuel that addiction for you?
Well, I just basically knew that there was a secret, and I didn't want it to get out. I had some friends growing up that we were just partying and drinking and hanging out, and so like I said, we found bars to go through, and I just kind of fell into that. I don't want to say fell into it because I was already there. Yeah. Basically, was in that lifestyle. Was always in a bar somewhere and hanging out, and being stupid and really didn't care. I didn't care about anybody I was with because I didn't care about myself. Yeah. And that really, for me, the best thing that ever happened to me was when I was confronted and then faced the consequences of what I did when I was younger, when I was 14. Then it's when it's like, okay, and now I'm able to talk about this thing and start working on it. So for me, at the height of my addiction, really lasted from like 14 to 22, somewhere right in there, 21, 22. So literally, for 25, almost 23, 24 years now, I've been involved with Pure Desire.
Yeah.
I went straight from acting out to consequences right into a Pure Desire group. And now here I am almost 24 years later.
Well, and I thank God for the path you took, but so take a pause and kind of rewind there a little bit. So you get busted, right? What happens after that then? What was the start of the recovery journey for Rich?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So here in Oregon, just a little background, Measure 11, which is a mandatory minimum sentencing guidelines for offenders, had just passed when I was one of the first ones charged under Measure 11 guidelines for something I did when I was, it was 8 years prior when I was a minor. Initially, I was looking at 49 years in prison.
Oof,
so even my attorney said that you're going to go, she's basically said there's not much of an option.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to sentencing, and then they said, well, the judge basically said, well, I can't see sending him to prison. Recommended 10 years of probation. I just about lost it. And so finished probation in 2007. But during that time, literally during the investigation, that whole process, I'd gotten into a group right away. I remember my very first group was a Monday morning group, 5 o'clock at a pizza place here in Gresham, Oregon.
5 a.m. at a pizza joint.
5 a.m. at a pizza joint. It was called Wall Street Pizza, and he used to make breakfast pizzas for the group. It was awesome.
Right on.
But the first group I ever went to, and I remember sitting around, there was about 16 guys around this big circle, and listening to guys talk, and I was like, I was so thankful for that group, but I was like, wow, these guys aren't really sharing a whole lot. And here we are, it's supposed to be a purity group, and I'm the young guy, and I'm like, and I had one friend who was leading the group, and the other guys I kind of felt like, wow, these guys really aren't taking it serious, and I've never been in a group. So I went in and I just unloaded everything. First group, just dropped the bomb. And that started the process. Mm-hmm. And so been involved for 23 years with Pure Desire groups, been leading 23 years. I've probably been leading 20 of those years, maybe a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. You had a period of time where from when you were abused as a child to where you committed your offense, but there was a lot of buildup and things in between there. What fueled the sexual addiction that was building and growing in your life, since pornography wasn't a big part of that? I know this might be a little bit of a loaded question, but what fueled that addiction to grow over the years without that pornography being present?
I think it was just when you look at sexual abuse and what it does to you mentally, physically, it plants this seed in your brain where it just begins to grow. So for me, it was all physical. I actually remember finding a magazine one time, and I kind of looked at it, and I'm like, it really didn't do anything. I was like, I don't see what the big deal. And I think at that age, I was probably like 6 or 7, maybe a little older. I can't remember. But looking at the pictures, I'm like, that just wasn't it. It didn't do anything. But if it was physical, so not, obviously when you're young, there's not a whole lot of physical you could do unless you put yourself in that situation. So it was real fantasy driven for me. And as I got older, with some friends that I knew and some girls that I knew growing up, and it was just a process of trying to figure a way out to increase it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but because porn wasn't it, I had to figure out a way, because fantasy, even the fantasy side it wasn't enough, because you could think about something. Now you just want to go act it out on something or with somebody. And so that's when I got older, after, especially when I abused my niece, and then I go through and then I start getting older and being with other gals and stuff. Then it was like, okay, the physical stuff just kind of played, right into that.
So Rich, you've got a criminal past, a background that goes with you because of the things in your past that you did. And there was, a lot of non-criminal, unhealthy sexual behavior that was there in the course of your addiction too as well. So lots of things that the enemy could use to pull you down and shame you. But where are you at now in your walk with the Lord? And what has God blessed you with as far as the ministry that you're able to do today with guys?
Well, the biggest thing is, I talked to a lot of guys that are in the process of going to prison for committing a crime under investigation. I get letters, we get letters in from guys that are in prison. And, the one thing is regardless if you're in prison, you're out of prison, whatever the legal situation is, we have this freedom that's available to us that that we never knew was possible.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so for me, the best thing that ever happened to me was actually getting confronted and going through the legal consequences. Otherwise, I'd be dead, in prison, probably both. I mean, who knows what would have happened, but I was definitely headed that way. Yeah, I was pretty blessed. I have a great family, and it took a long time for me to prove myself to my family, and kind of work my way back into the family, and it was all on me. There was nobody else could do anything. It was all on me and what I had to do, and along with that freedom, there comes work, because we always talk about God can take something away from you and heal you,
Yeah.
which is great. But sometimes when he does that, he requires you to do some work too. He's just not going to take it from you. He'll take it from you, but he says, no, you need to go do some of this too.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important piece is to know that God can heal us, but we got some work to do.
Amen. Amen to that. I think it's so critical to have everybody see that, regardless of where you're at in the journey, God has great plans for you. And there's nothing that you could have done in your past that makes God say, I'm not using you anymore. As a matter of fact, I think it's the complete opposite of that. The stuff that's in our past, like when I abused my stepdaughter and you abused your niece, I would have never, ever, I thought I'd have to live under a rock the rest of my life.
Yep.
God doesn't bash me down for that. He says, I'm going to take who I've created through that and allow your story to minister to other people who may be going through the same type of thing. So I think it's awesome what you've allowed God to do in your life, because you could have shut him out. And you're one of the reasons why I'm here, because I saw what you were allowing God to do in your life and what he chose to do in a guy that did the stuff that you did, which was very similar to me. So thank you for that. And is there anything else that you want to leave us with? Any final thoughts here as we wrap up today, Rich?
Yeah, I think the biggest encouragement is don't let the enemy stop you from getting help, because it's so easy just to hide, isolate, and not want to reach out. It's going to be painful. The process is going to be probably one of the hardest things you'll ever do in your life. But the rewards of the freedom that you're going to experience by the hard work is nothing you'll ever experience outside of working on this stuff. As Paul mentioned, the freedom that he felt when he was able to get this out. Myself, even talking to guys in prison. These guys are in prison. Some guys for the rest of their lives have told me they've never experienced the freedom that they've experienced, other than going through the material in prison with other inmates and allowing God to reach them in the prisons. So I just again encourage you to not be afraid to reach out for help. That's what we're here for. It could be a quick phone call, an email. We never look at anybody at what they do or why they did it. My goal is just to help people.
Well, my thanks to Rich for joining us on our episode today. We are going to have him back on our next episode as we dig into the ever fun topic of confession and how critical it is to confess sin that's in our life, whether it's habitual sin that's continuing in order to break that cycle of that sin, or if it's sin that's happened in the past and we just need to bring it to the light through confession. We're going to talk about how critical that is, and you just really can't find true freedom until you do that. But right now, I'd encourage you to head over to Pure Desire's website and go to their online store and pick up a copy of Rich's book, The Silent Battle, One Man's Fight for Freedom. It's an easy read. It's not very thick at all, but it's Rich's story condensed on these pages here, and it really talks about the crossroads that Rich came to, where he had to pick his former life of addiction and sexual sin that was there, or following Christ and shedding all of that and leaving it behind. So this is a great read. I'd really encourage you to go pick up a copy today, either for yourself and then buy a few for some guys that you know that might be struggling through some of these same things, that would really be encouraged by what you heard today in Rich's story. And I just want to thank you for a tremendous first year at Turnback. Those of you who have jumped on board as prayer supporters, I know there's a lot of you. Thank you so much. We would not be in existence without that. And those of you who have joined financially, either through one-time gifts or you become monthly supporters of the ministry financially, Thank you. We literally could not keep the doors open without those funds coming in. So we are, like I said earlier, a 501c3 tax exempt charity now at the IRS. So all of you who have donated, you will be receiving receipts for your donations from this year. But we really like to make a push between now and the end of December. You have till today, until December 31st, to continue giving to Turnback to receive tax credits for the 2018 tax year. So I would like to ask you today to prayerfully consider giving to Turnback either a one-time end-of-the-year gift or coming on board as a monthly financial supporter of Turnback. That's the most critical for us, because that enables us to set our budget so we know what we have coming in every month, so we know what we're able to do. So the big things that we're focusing on right now, like I said earlier, is our online recovery groups, where we've got a lot of spots filling up there. We need technology for that, computers. We also need our monthly subscriptions to our video conferencing and our internet services for that, for the different leaders that will be doing that. And then a large part of that is my salary, so I can move out of these other jobs that are taking up time and be able to focus on my executive director position at Turnback full time. But then also, as we make a push to open the Turnback Ranch, our recovery center, in 2020. We're going to need a lot of you to be financial supporters to help make that a reality. So if you'd consider between now and December 31st making a gift to Turnback, if you'd like to do that, you can just go to our website, turnbackministries.com, and there's a giving link right at the top of that page that'll take you to our online secure giving portal. So thank you so much, guys, for tuning into this episode. I love all of you so much, and I'm so glad to be able to be in the battle with you every day, and I look forward to seeing you next episode. Until then, may God richly bless you, and have a Merry, Merry Christmas as you focus on Jesus Christ coming to earth as a baby in order to save us and free us from our sins so we can be with Him forever. God bless you guys.
Yeah, maybe I'm just trying to think. Just maybe a little bit. I can't really pinpoint that piece of it.
Well, you blew that question up. That was supposed to be a great question.
Yeah. Here, edit it. Do it again. I'll think of something.